In 1204, Western Europe convinced itself it had built a superpower from scratch. The Fourth Crusade had finally broken Constantinople's millennium-long streak. They didn't just conquer the world's richest city, they stripped it bare. Gold, silver, relics, and real estate were seized in a frenzy of victory. They called this smash and grab the birth of the Latin Empire of the East. But you don't build a dynasty on a victory lap or a pile of stolen gold. You build it on the boring stuff: taxes, laws, and grinding daily legitimacy. 1 year later, that shiny new facade faced its first real stress test, and the moment the pressure hit, the whole thing shattered. In 1205, 12,000 Bulgarians stared down 40,000 Crusaders. On paper, this looks like a fluke, a classic underdog story. A scrappy local force beating a massive, wealthy, well-armored war machine. Clever tricks outsmarting the heavy cavalry and elite knights of the West. But if you only look at the tactics, you miss the real cause of death. The battle didn't kill the Latin Empire. It just pulled back the curtain on a system that was already bankrupt. Long before the first arrow flew, the math was already lethal. To understand why, you have to look at the empire's original sin. Nobody took Constantinople in 1204 to actually govern the place. They took it to cash out. Fast. The Crusaders wanted a payout, property, and a return on their investment. They never planned on managing the boring overhead of a state. The sack provided a massive, one-time injection of liquid cash. The leadership looked at a one-time heist and confused it for a yearly salary. But plunder isn't a tax base. Once you spend it, it's gone. And occupying a city doesn't mean the people accept you as king. The Latin Empire put on the robes and adopted the titles and the pomp. It was a costume of an empire with absolutely no engine inside it. The old Byzantine tax system evaporated the moment the walls fell. Local bureaucrats fled, fought back, or just ghosted their new bosses. Trade routes snapped as trust and safety left the region. Income nosedived just as the bill for the army skyrocketed. Knights demanded land as payment for their swords and loyalty. But land without willing peasants is just dirt. It yields nothing. The locals looked at these new rulers and saw nothing but foreign thieves. Tax compliance hit zero in the cities and the farmland alike. Garrisons weren't assets anymore. They were money pits. The empire was running on IOUs. It had no way to pay. From day one, the Latin Empire was living on borrowed time. High fixed costs for the army, with revenue crashing through the floor. They needed constant looting just to keep the lights on. Any pause in the cash flow put the whole structure in the danger zone. Confidence was holding the glue together, not actual gold. And confidence is the first thing to vanish when things get real. To the north, Bulgaria was watching this house of cards teeter. Tsar Kaloyan understood something the Crusaders missed. Empires rarely die from a stab wound. They die of starvation when they can't feed their own bulk. Bulgaria didn't try to occupy Constantinople or replace the Byzantines. They didn't want the overhead or the administrative headaches. They just waited for the Crusaders to overextend and break themselves. Bulgaria's army was smaller on purpose, not because they were weak. Low overhead meant they could choose when and where to fight. Living off the land meant they didn't need a massive supply train. Cumans provided fast cavalry that could be hired and fired at will. These were variable costs. You only pay for them when you need them. Bulgaria could hit hard, then melt away before the bill came due. The Crusader army was a heavy, expensive beast with no brakes. Knights needed constant pay, food, and a mountain of supplies. Horses eat a staggering amount of grain and water every single day. Armor needs wagons, smiths, and an army of support staff. Every day in the field burned through cash at a terrifying rate. Time was the enemy of the Crusader financial model. In April 1205, the Latin emperor marched out to crush Bulgaria. Emperor Baldwin I led the charge, high on his own hype. Recent wins had convinced him that losing was impossible. Bad intel made them think the Bulgarians were a minor nuisance. The Crusaders assumed a big, decisive battle would solve everything. They treated their superiority like a guarantee instead of a risk. The trap near Adrianople was economic as much as it was tactical. The Bulgarians refused to give the heavy cavalry a standing target. Cuman riders buzzed the Crusader lines, then ran away, over and over. The knights took the bait, chasing shadows just like their ego demanded. Discipline vanished as the need to kill replaced the need to think. The heavy cavalry outran their own infantry support. To a casual observer, it looked like bad luck or chaos. But this wasn't bad luck, it was structural exposure. Overextended units couldn't cover each other or regroup. The chain of command snapped under the pressure of a fragmented fight. Logistics didn't matter anymore because order had dissolved. Those fixed military costs instantly turned into a death sentence. They took Emperor Baldwin I alive, and the illusion vanished. Central authority didn't just retreat, it evaporated in an afternoon. This wasn't just a lost battle, it was a run on the bank. The emperor was the collateral backing the whole system. When he fell, the empire's credit rating hit zero. Vassals switched sides before the dust even settled. Garrisons surrendered or just walked away. Territories stopped sending money to the capital. Promises meant nothing without the power to back them up. The empire's balance sheet imploded in real time. The Latin Empire technically hung around on maps for a while, but functionally it died that day on the field. Future defeats were just the aftershocks. The system was too brittle to survive even a minor hit. Bulgaria didn't destroy an empire through conquest, it issued a margin call on a bad investment. The Latin Empire was insolvent. Its lifestyle cost more than it could ever produce. The Battle of 1205 just forced them to open the books. By 1261, Constantinople was reclaimed with barely a fight. The Latin Empire faded out without a glorious last stand. It's a lesson history loves to teach the hard way. Early success is great at hiding rot in the foundation. A quick payday can look like wealth until the bills come due. Confidence works great as a substitute for cash, until it doesn't. Empires die when the math finally overtakes the myth. Not when they run out of bravery or soldiers or swords, but when the system can't pay for itself anymore. The Battle of 1205 was never just an upset. It was a brutal audit of a bankrupt idea.